So apologies for the slightly late start, again a little bit because of the parking situation. I think there's an event at the school, parents' evening or something else. So I hope you can all get out when you leave. I'm sure it'll be fine. So I'm going to talk a little bit with you, or have a little bit of an interactive moment before we kick off, and there's going to be this beautiful film. We're then going to have a networking break, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about how that works. And then after that, we're going to come back and hear from the stars of the film, and I'll introduce them in just a second. So, as I said, tonight's a fundraiser. We're supporting global conservation charity Conservation Without Borders and local organisation Sustainable Frome. And we've come together in partnership this evening to really explore migratory birds and to think about and just explore a little bit the different habitats that they fly over, and I guess the people that are involved in really creating those habitats to be good for both people and migratory species and other than from the non-human world. So first, actually, I think I might just do the quiz answers. Did you all have a bit of a go? Yeah, okay, all right. So I'll let you see how we're done. So it's probably going to go a bit slow. So I'm just going to go through them quickly. The first question was, an internationally important wetland is? Somerset Levels. Who said that? Oh, excellent. Okay, good. You know how this works now. Ham Wall and Shatwick Heath were all created from? Peat extraction. Ah, very good. Birds navigate using? All of the above, yes. Magnetic fields, star patterns, and geographical features. Okay, migratory birds are threatened by all of the above. Habitat loss, climate change, and power lines, and maybe more. We'll be finding out about that in a bit. Alarming trends.
All of them.
I'd go for all of the above, yeah. Population decline, short stopping in Europe due to climate change, means they don't come this far anymore. So the Buick Swans, there's very few of them now, but again, we'll hear about that later. And lead poisoning, again, we'll hear about that later. Right, what's arriving from Scandinavia right now? Great. And the Wildfowl Swift Group told me there's some other things arriving as well. I can't remember what they were. Not Swifts, okay. Well, the Buick Swans are arriving, I think, quite soon, right? Where's Julia? She was telling me that. Is that right? Yeah, so we'll hear a bit more about that later too. Okay, swans mate for how long? Life. No. What kind of projects at Ham Wall have been a huge conservation success? Wetland restoration, right? When did the Swifts leave for Africa? August. August. Already gone. Not around anymore. Who thinks they're still around? No, not anymore. Okay, and what does Sustainable Frome do? Everything, obviously. Had to get that in there. Well done. Who got 10 out of 10? Yes! There's some people got 10 out of 10. I love that. Okay, great. So thank you all for coming. Oh, hold on. I'm going to do a little interactive bit. So who has migrated the furthest here? So we're going to play a little game. So if you just turn to your neighbour and ask them where did they come from? Where did you come from? Okay. So... You can say today, like, to get here. All right, so, hey, you're just saying to your neighbour, where did you come from? That's where I know. Okay, so, whose neighbour came from out of Frome, not in Frome? Hands up. Oh, great. Let's take a few shares. What about you there at the end? Where did your neighbour? They can answer for you. It's a listening exercise. From Cornwall, yay! Wow. Anyone's neighbour come further than Cornwall? Yeah, Tim.
Argentina.
Wow! I didn't always raise a round of applause that. Brilliant. I love that. Okay, anyone else want to put a shout out? Huh? Anyone? Africa. Africa. Whoa. Just like the Swifts. I'm loving it. Okay, so next question. Who works in conservation or bird stuff? Anyone? Just one down the front. Oh, got 2 here, 3. Great. Okay, so we've got salmon conservation. So why the rest of you here? Who really loves birds? Yes. Okay. Great. Love that. Also got to thank some other special people. I need to thank Jules, our tech wizard at the back there, who's pulled everything together to make today possible. Thank you, Jules! Yay! Waving. Also to Lindy Babas, who generously donated meals for our amazing organising and networking team, so I'm going to thank him separately. But I would like to introduce the generous networking people that are around. So if those eagle-eyed among you may have spotted in the foyer, there's 3 wonderful displays. And Jules, if you could put the networking slide up, that would be ace. We've got an opportunity in the break to ask questions of these wonderful people on the right-hand side here. So apologies to the Swift and House Martin group, I didn't get your logo in time, so instead I've got a picture of a Swift, a House Martin and a swallow. So for those of you who can see that top left-hand corner, you can test your knowledge. If you don't know, somebody you could go and talk to over the break. So you've got Eunice, Parker, Maureen and Caroline. Do you want us to just stand up for a moment, you 3? Yay, a little round of applause for those coming all the way from Bradford on Avon. I guess it's part of Climate Friendly Bradford, yeah. And working to raise awareness of a shocking decline in swifts and house martins over the last 25 years. So do visit the store. They've got some brilliant nest boxes, if you haven't already seen, and simple actions that you could do to help those birds, right? So that's those 3, thank you. Then we've got, representing the Friends of the River Frome, we've got Derek Newman. Is that, I've said it right? Do you want us to stand up and wave? Thank you, Derek, for coming all the way from Frome. So you might know Derek as the country diary writer for The Guardian. Derek's been in Frome just 13 months, but already made a really great impression, getting stuck into everything, brings decades of experience as a conservation and wildlife communicator. So I think you said you were a wildlife generalist. You basically like talking, so please go talk to Derek in the break. And finally, that we've got representing sort of Frome Town Council and the Wild Bunch, we've got I can't read my writing now. Writing, obviously it's not. Marlene and Tina. If you want to stand up. Oh, thank you so much for coming. Bringing such a lovely display. So they particularly can tell you about a citizen science project that's going on with Frome Town Council, that's where your participation is needed. And there's going to be a sort of nature restoration plan next year, is that right? So that's going to feed into that. My understanding anyway, so anyway, you can ask them a bit more about it. And you can learn a bit more about how to garden for wildlife. So that's where you can go in the break. There's also leaflets on the table for Heal. Unfortunately, Dan couldn't make it this evening, but they wanted to share at Heal Rewilding, which is a rewilding site not far out of Frome. They wanted to say, who's actually a bird watcher here? Like, would you call yourself sort of Don't say that anymore. Okay, not S.PC. What is just bird watcher? Bird watcher. Okay. So particularly for you, you might be interested in this. They have had an incredible array of migratory species passing through. We've got warblers breeding, blackcaps, chiffchaffs, willow warblers, winter flocks of redwings and fieldfares already there gorging on the berries. We've got, obviously now not saying more, but the swallows, the house martins, swifts. They've recorded yellow wagtails, redstarts, and cuckoos. So they think the site is acting as a pit stop for birds on their journey. Even wood pigeons, crossbills, redpolls, as they use it, that travel around the country. It's obviously not migrating from out of the country, but apparently they think that's a good thing. They wanted me to highlight that. They also added a pine marten, which is obviously not a bird, but they felt that migratory species were important to mention, including, did you know that migrating butterflies like painted ladies and red admirals pass by there as well? So they wanted to highlight that. And they've got lots of leaflets where you can actually the site is open 24 hours, so you can go for free whenever and just sit and watch if you wish, but there's also lots of volunteer opportunities there. So maybe take a photo of this slide. I'm going to let you get your phones out if that's interesting to you. Then you could remember these organisations and look them up online if you were interested, or remember the people's names who came and the little tags that say the things that you could get involved in locally. I thought it was very important to have this film, but also have a local connection. How am I doing? Got a bit more? Okay. So, well, I guess I'd now like to introduce the stars of the film. Well, I won't do a big introduction because I think they're going to do that themselves after the break, but maybe if you could stand up, Sacha and Julia Newth. Yay! We're actually in the film. Sacha's come all the way from Scotland today, and I think Julia from Bristol. And hold your questions for them because they will be doing a Q&A after the break. And I think I just wanted to give you a little bit of a personal note about why this event, why now. Was when I first heard about this film, I just knew it had to be on a big screen. It just felt like the kind of thing that was cinematic enough that it had to be in the cinema, not just because of the beauty of how it's shot, but because it's an absolutely bonkers idea to fly that far in a little thing with the swans, and I just thought that was absolutely brilliant. And then when I happened to bump into Charlie in Frome Whole Foods and mentioned it, he said, "Oh, I reckon we could get Sacha down." I was like, what? Okay, that has to happen. So absolutely delighted that it has happened today, and it feels, now that I'm reflecting on it today, even more important that we at least wonder about what it is to be a migratory bird and what it is to undertake these incredible journeys across borders, through hardships, and what does that teach us about resilience and survival and people crossing borders with incredible journeys and so forth. So it felt like it was important to at least ask some of these questions of ourselves. So we're nearly there. Before we begin, one final reminder, this is a fundraiser event. So every contribution helps, both for migratory birds globally and also for us locally to make a real difference, because it means that we can actually do grant-making projects and run events like this next year. So please do feel free. This is up in various places around the foyer to click this QR code if you enjoyed the evening and donate to this rather shabby fundraising page on Just Giving that I set up a few days ago. So I think that is it. Charlie, is there anything that I've missed?
No.
No, you can get with it. All right, so are we all ready? Yeah. Yes?
Phones off.
I'm going to ask you...
Phones off.
Phones off. Charlie says phones off. Anybody's still got their mobile phones on? So in a moment, I'm going to ask you to take a really deep breath, and as you do this, to imagine you are... Sacha, how many feet in the air were you, roughly? Well, when you're flying with the swans. How high were you up?
3,500.
3,500. No, 3,500. Let's say 3,000 feet in the air. So I'm going to take a deep breath. Imagine you're breathing and you're flying 3,000 feet in the air coming into your lungs, and then we'll begin. So feel yourself sitting comfortably in your flight seat. Yeah, everyone comfortable? Okay, let's inhale, taking that big breath of deep, fresh air, 3,000 feet up, and then let's begin.
Тундра для меня это простор.
Oh, apparently when I did my little blurb earlier, I didn't introduce myself. So we all know you. Yeah, everyone knows me. So just to say, my name's Madeleine Mawer, and I'm a Director of Sustainable Frome, and have been for quite a long time. And was feeling a bit like, oh, we need to do something really cool. So hopefully this will give us all some more energy. And Charlie, do you want to introduce yourself?
You introduce.
Oh, you introduce. I don't know. All the brilliant things that you do is really difficult. So Charlie's a filmmaker. What else does Charlie do? Anyone? Anyone knows Charlie? A what? Speaker. Yes, she's a speaker, motivational person, mother, and many other things.
Tree group.
Tree group. Sorry, yes, tree group. Obviously, so anything you want to know about trees, Charlie's your woman, and was a massive supporter right from the beginning. So thank you, Charlie. Okay, but enough about us. You don't want to hear about us. Give a big hand for Sacha and Julia. Introduce you, but I think the film kind of speaks for itself. So I'm just going to let you take over, and then me and Charlie will just run around with mics for you at the right moment.
Yeah,
okay.
At least timing and all those things.
Okay.
So thank you very much for coming along to watch the film. It was a pretty epic project. That in the early days, in fact, when I first had this bonkers idea, it was Julia that I first sent it to after I sat on it for 6 months. And I got this is totally bonkers, but totally bonkers it might work. And so we've had a bit of that was an incredible journey, and there's been a journey since then, working with the Swans. And I was going to get up and give you a really rapid run through of the impacts that we had on the expedition, the things that happened really instantly, and also the things that have been a slower burn, because there's been years in between. And then I realised that there's actually one particular issue that we've made really big progress on. In fact, Julia has been key to that, and where we've recently made another big jump in terms of progress, and where you can all help. And that's why I wanted to bring Julia up to talk about that in particular, and that is on the issue of lead poisoning. I don't know, were many of you really aware of the lead poisoning issue before this? So there was some. Okay. So, yeah, Julia, would you start by maybe mentioning... So there's a point near the end of the film where we say, in an amazing move, there's been a ban on the use of lead shot over wetlands across Europe. Did that mean a big win for the UK?
Hi everyone. Yes, it was a really big moment for the EU, because the EU took that really bold step to ban lead shots across all wetlands. So that would have benefited millions of migratory birds passing through the EU countries.
And things that eat them.
And yeah, exactly, and predators that then eat lead-poisoned birds that become poisoned themselves. There's lots of routes here to poisoning. We obviously know lead is highly toxic. In fact, the Romans knew that. There's various philosophers, Greek philosophers, who've sort of said, lead makes the mind give way. So we've known about this for, a long, long time. And we've known about it as an issue in birds since the late 1800s, and yet progress has been very slow to make change for lots of reasons, including big business, lead ammunition, basically, is one of the main drivers there. So we had this really big win in the EU where lead shot was banned, but unfortunately it didn't affect the UK because we Brexited, and the timing was a matter of days actually. So the UK did already have some restrictions on lead shots, so there was already some measures here. But in order for lead poisoning to be eliminated across water birds and to stop pollution of our environment, we just need to completely ban lead shot for outdoor shooting. And I'm really pleased to say that just a few weeks ago
Can I just bit first?
You go, yeah.
There was lots of kicking this decision down the road for a very long time, and I have, in years of conservation, very rarely, I don't think I've ever come across an issue that seemed so clean cut and made no sense. And I am from hunting backgrounds in Australia, so I also thought makes no sense for anyone hunting to want to use this. Anyway, there was can be kicked down the road, and there were plans for a soft kind of protest to try and have a dig at this. And then there was a bit of a miracle decision, I felt.
Yes, so the recent one.
Yeah.
I mean, exactly. So there's lots of resistance to change for lots of reasons. People are used to using lead in their guns. It's a very effective ballistically. There's the business interests there, so there's a lot of forces against it. But we're really pleased to say that just a few weeks ago, the UK government announced a full ban, near enough a full ban on the use of lead ammunition for outdoor shooting. Which is really fantastic, because finally we can put an end to lead poisoning of water birds in the UK. And it's just been a really long time coming, and it's just nice to have some sort of good news and, you know, progress in the right direction. And I have to say that there are a lot of shooters already using non-lead alternatives. So this isn't a new thing. There's many hunters that were supportive of this because they didn't want to be the polluters, you know, chucking out lots of toxic lead ammunition into the countryside, more than 7,000 tonnes a year in the British countryside. So yeah, it was a big milestone for us.
And yet, with that, so there is also a European opportunity now, isn't there? Now, whilst we had the ban on lead shot across the EU wetlands, the implementation of that has been a bit slow, right? And so there is an opportunity now where you can all help contribute because we need some signatures. Can you just give a bit more detail?
Yes, so the restrictions in the EU at the moment are just in wetlands, but you can probably see by the footage, and you probably know already, that many migratory birds actually spend a lot of their days feeding outside of wetlands, so they continue to be poisoned. So we need a lead ammunition ban across all those habitats, not just, you know, isolated wetlands. And this is the latest campaign. We're working with lots of partners, BirdLife Europe and Asia, Wetlands International, WWT, lots of NGOs, human health bodies, animal welfare bodies too. And this is our latest campaign.
It's a big issue in even pet food.
Yeah, pet food, yeah. So lead seeps into lots of things. It affects human health when we eat lead shot game. It kills birds and it pollutes our waterways and soils. So yeah, this latest campaign basically, again, we're nearly there in the history of lead ammunition poisoning. More than 100 years of that's been going on, and we're almost there. So it's a wider restriction is currently being considered by the EU at the moment, and it's working its way through different committees. And we really need public support to just give that a bit of a nudge, because we found that to be really powerful with the previous wins.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point to make. That actually the public impact makes a huge difference. Can I tell a quick story that I forgot to tell about the Polish situation? So when on the expedition, I think you saw very briefly the Polish situation. At one point, with there was me being interviewed in a field with lots of people. So on the expedition, we had a couple of missions. I was interested in getting a feel for like people's the feeling of hunters towards the use of lead. Were they as beholden to it as the people had been in the UK, for example? Anyway, at one point on the expedition, Ireland and Poland, I think, were the only countries that had no restrictions on the use of lead. Our Polish partner said, if you fly over this piece of forest and land in a field live on breakfast television at 9:10, it has to be exactly at 9:10, then you can talk about lead poisoning in Polish wetlands, and Poland has got some pretty impressive wetlands. You can talk about that live on breakfast television to a huge audience. And so we did the diversion. I landed live, and the journalist that you saw in the film did the most impressive bit of expressed the most impressive bit of journalistic skill. In that I think I'm not sure if it's mentioned, but actually when you're flying in the cold with your hands busy doing other things, quite often I would land and I would have like tears and snot somewhere on my face and all of that. So anyway, I land live on Polish television, and it's very cold by this time of the year. And as I pull my helmet off, live on television, the journalist comes in with his camera and a microphone, and with his other hand he reaches in and grabs a hold of the snot and the end of my nose. It never made it onto television. Anyway, all hell broke loose after that, because the members of the public who saw it wrote in and complained about the hunters, and the hunters complained to the television broadcasters about, that we'd dismissed them on television without a chance to reply. And anyway, it was mayhem, and I just said, why don't you invite the hunters to dinner? And the conservation partners there were like, there's no way they'll come, and they did. So they came to dinner. That's us having a meeting there. And we sat down across each other and we went through the same old arguments that both sides of this debate have had for many years here. And as they were talking, I realised that they hadn't understood the really basic concept of the fact that it was lead that the birds eat, not lead that is shot into their body that's poisoning them. And at that point, I had a moment where I could have made them look like idiots, because they also brought their own sort of TV people as well. And instead, I talked to them about what it looks like when you see a bird that's died of lead poisoning. And the first one that I saw had its whole throat was choked with grass, because it had got paralysis of the neck muscles, so obviously couldn't swallow. It had scabs on the front of its wings because it had lost the ability to use its legs, so it had been dragging itself around and inside the gizzard, I think there were 19, 20, I don't know, quite a lot of, anyway, small bits of lead. And as I described that, I think the penny was dropping of like just the mechanism of this, and I don't know any hunter that wants to see something suffering like that for no reason whatsoever. And so then after that, Julia and others had arranged a swan conference in Poland, and the two PR people for the Hunting Association turned up. And afterwards they said to me, it's embarrassing that we've never spoken to a conservation organisation about this before. And then they also said, thanks for inviting us. And whilst we probably can't be seen to do a complete about face on the issue, we won't fight it. And I think that was I guess our general approach to a lot of the engaging with hunters along the way was kind of create a space of enough trust that we could exchange some ideas, and I think that's probably a kind of important thing on lots of ways. Let's go back very briefly to that, just in case anybody wants to get out their phone and use that QR code. At this point, we are going to open up to questions. There are actually two other short things that will involve your phone, if you possibly can, that we would love some help with. We've been showing this film for a while, and I also give talks about the project, and I find that there are some audiences where there's lots of things going on that people can see a film like this, hear some of the issues, and they can find basically ways to do something about it. Take the kind of anger or the sorrow or something rather, and actually apply that to something. We found there are lots of areas where people don't have that network, and so we've been asked to make a kit which can help somebody to mobilise people. So there are two questions we're going to ask them in a bit. So if you don't mind getting out your phones, this is a Mentimeter link. But while you all open that up, can we open up to a question? Who's running around with the microphone? There are no hands up. Does anybody have any questions? In general, not about lead necessarily, but about the whole film? I can't see very well, okay. So you just go for it.
How long did it take to fly the migration route?
For me, I left on about September 18 or 19, and I arrived December 16. So three months. Not flying all the time, so some days we couldn't fly, and some days, maximum probably of, maybe I did 3 2-hour flights in a day was probably the most I could handle. There's a question up there.
It's just a simple question. It's just how many I know there are many people involved in the whole film in many countries, but how many in your actual team to do this project? And how long did it, and when did you do it? When did it finish?
So the expedition, we started probably planning it in 2014, did the flight in 2016. Some of the footage is from the probably 3 years following that. So Julia and I have both been back up to the Russian Arctic. When you say the team, I suppose it's quite broad. So at the very beginning, there were God knows how many people at Slimbridge. So quite a few different people just in the research department. How many do you think?
There was a big, sort of back office team, probably at least 20 people, but dealing with various elements, whether it's fundraising or research or whatever. And then there was, of course, the expedition team.
There's the expedition team. And then right at the beginning, so from the first reference of it, and the document we wrote up, Julia and co sent it to researchers along the flyway. So there are researchers and conservation organisations along the flyway because they needed to buy into it. And then I got advice from probably 5 or 6 of the best kind of flying experts I knew. And we ended up with a paramotor organisation or expert in every country as well to just look at, is this feasible? Are there places to fly? Can we do it in a way that is, can we go to the sites anyway that would be of most interest? And then in the ground crew, there was up to 12 people at any time. It's only the Russian Arctic that there were just 3 pilots because there's no ground, there's no roads or runway there. So I would say it was pretty huge. And then if you include the teachers that engaged, so we visited 54 schools, but there were a lot more that had been following it for a long time. By the time we got to Poland, I don't know how many schools were on the schedule that we really had to go and visit. So the team had to split up and do one person started it, and then I would come and do a piece, and whilst they had left to go to the next school. So there were thousands of students just in Poland. So it just grew to be quite huge. I'm not sure exactly if that's the question that you were asking, and you called it a film. I guess the project was the project. It was never intended really to be a film. We were capturing media for media coverage, because that is the way that I thought we were going to get the interest of politicians in each country who needed to ratify action plans. That's how we were going to get the public to send in information, because we wanted to crowdsource what were the bits that we're missing. So it started off all being about media coverage, and I think we got 1,000 pieces of broadcast coverage, 84 of those in Russia where people said they won't be interested in conservation, and 700 otherwise, including the sort of highest profile chat shows in the Netherlands and things. So it was all about capturing that media, and it was just that we ended up capturing, or the team captured such amazing stuff that a film was able to be made. So yeah.
I think for us in the conservation, working in the conservation with Buick Swans, it was basically a facilitator, an accelerator for our work we were doing, because you can sort of imagine that actually to have cooperation across 11 countries of a bird's flyway, it takes a long time. And although we did have some good relationships with colleagues in each country, that sort of concerted effort for 3 or 4 months of the exhibition really helped sort of propel that and galvanise support and extend support to all civil society, so outside of just the conservation circles.
And we managed to raise the profile of the experts as well. So I haven't told here, but I used to be a shark and turtle geneticist, and I had a horrific moment years ago of working on the shark nets off Sydney, and finding that whilst we went through freedom of information to get a list of all the things that were caught and were dying unnecessarily, people, and I had partners in other scientists and other NGOs, people just didn't care that much. And then I became Australian freediving champion, and I was wearing a monofin and freediving along the shark nets. And suddenly, as a sports personality in Australia, everybody wanted to know what I had to say. And that was a bit of my epiphany. I was really mad about it at the time. It was a bit of an epiphany of where the humans, and including the media, they go for a human story. And I also, on this project, at first I fought the idea of the human swan, and then eventually I realised if that's what gives someone the headline that makes them go for the story, then great. And in each country, we kind of brought a bit of that to the researchers and their work. And the reality is, media will turn up because they want the story of the crazy swan lady, but they don't really want someone speaking English on the news for 3 minutes, because then there's lots of subtitle issues. So I would come and bring a little bit of story and footage, and actually it was the local scientists that were telling the story, and also attracted some celebrities for those countries as well.
This is about the birds, actually. I mean, do they fly anywhere else apart from to Slimbridge?
They do. Slimbridge is great, but we do have 100 or so Buick Swans at Slimbridge every winter. They'll be arriving in the next couple of weeks, actually, and building up through the winter. But in terms of the UK, there's several hundred on the Ouse Washes in Norfolk and Cambridgeshire. So that's another place you can spot them, but they're much further away, feeding on the agricultural fields.
I was going to say 2 years ago there were 10 that went to Wexford Slobs in Ireland.
Oh yeah, there's a very small number in Ireland. They're short stoppings. They're not coming quite as far. We're on the western fringes of their whole wintering range. But of course we have, there's also thousands of Buicks that winter in Denmark, also in the Netherlands, and increasingly in Germany, because our winters are just milder now, generally across the European continents. They just don't have to come, they're not driven as far by the weather, by the easterly winds. So Germany's seeing a sort of an increase in Buick swans, whilst in the UK and Ireland we're seeing quite a big decrease. But there's also a population decline as well, so there's a few things.
Yeah. Could I ask you a quick follow-up question to that? Quick follow-up question, Julie. You mentioned to me earlier, you said
you'd be able to see these swans arriving over the next couple of weeks at Slimbridge from the comfort and observation tower. Do you want to just say a little bit about that? Because you said there's about 100 birds, right, that come to Slimbridge?
Yeah, this sounds like a really shameless plug, actually, but it's sort of...
Do it, because I thought, when I started at WWT, when I realised it wasn't the Wildlife and Wetland Trust, but the Wildfowl and Wetlands Trust, my instant reaction as a shark person was, that sounds like domestic animals, duckies and swans. And Slimbridge transformed, Slimbridge and the wardens and the way that people can interpret the world from a bird's eye view was transformational. So shameless plug away.
Well, I don't know if many of you have been to Slimbridge, but quite a few actually, that's nice. So it's just sort of south of Gloucester. It's not too far away, but it's an international wetland Ramsar site. So it is spectacular. I mean, my favourite time actually is sort of coming into this time of year, the winter, where you do have millions of migratory birds coming across Europe, and we have several thousand at Slimbridge over the winter. It is really spectacular. But if you're particularly interested in the Buick swans, you can actually come and watch them in a heated observatory, which is quite nice. And just a few metres away, they can't see you, but you can see them, and the reserve wardens do a commentated feed and give you information about them. But I think what's quite special about that is they're very shy, actually, the Buick swans. They're sort of a high Arctic breeding bird, and you usually can't get close to them. You just can't. So it's probably the closest you will ever get to a wild Buick swan. So it is worth seeing. Probably not for a while, though. The numbers start, best time to see them probably like December, January. But it is worth a visit if you can get there.
Yeah, okay. Could you tell me what the situation is with the power lines now? Because you made a film a while back. Have power utility companies taken up marking them so the birds can see them?
Or can I give an example? So obviously with the increase in renewable energy, there is a need for an increase in infrastructure. And I think, as we said in the film, where people know of hotspots, where birds are hitting power lines, we can do something about it. So can I give you one example? So I guess it's an issue that people can look out for, and if you notice there are areas where birds are hitting, then you can tell your power company. On the expedition, we came across a pretty interesting, let's say it was a horrific example, in Estonia, where between the mainland and the islands there's this, is it a dam, I think, that's built, and there's these 6 power lines, basically a strand of 6 different tiers of power lines that go across this whole way. And I think that because of it's basically on the migration routes between 2 bodies of water, and it was built in the 60s, and the local people have noticed, swans in particular, because they're big, hitting the power lines and landing on the road for many years. And they'd been told for years that, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do about it, they've been there for ages and it's too expensive. So much so that they'd made these signs up, they'd been campaigning for a bit. And on the expedition, we came through and were directed towards it and managed to highlight the issue, get some national TV coverage around the issue, and then on the subsequent year went back and showed a bit of footage and invited the power company down to give an award to some of the locals. Within a year of this happening, the company took away half of those power lines and put up diverters. I have no idea why that wasn't done in the beginning, but it wasn't. And then in the background, we found out last year that the company had been working away in the background, and they'd managed to source, the only alternative to this basically was putting the power lines underwater. They had managed to source the 10 million needed to bury the power lines underwater, and it was scheduled to be done in December last year. And then the engineers at the company Ellering, amazing, they found out that the migration happens in September, October, and went out expressly and buried them underground beforehand. So that's saving thousands of birds a year. So the interesting thing is I went back last year to say thank you to people in the company, so they let me in to give a thank you talk to people. And in particular, there was a local guy who'd been campaigning for years in the most hilariously funny way. He'd found creative ways of campaigning. So let me show you a picture of Heikki. He's a tree surgeon and kept giving us updates all the time. But he did say the company hate me. And so I asked the PR person to give an interview in which I said, what do you think of Heikki, the pressure he's put on you for years? And he eventually said, thank you, we need people like that to shift the shifts the calculation in the company's management of risk, or the idea of risk. So actually, I managed to get a thank you to him whilst he thought he'd been banging his head against a brick wall for years. And then I asked if I could speak to the director, who behind the scenes had done this sourcing of the 10 million and made the case that actually this was a risk the company couldn't handle. And I tried to say thank you to him, and he said, actually, I'm now on various boards where I'm helping make other decisions, and it'd be best that you don't out me as somebody who makes decisions for nature. So on the quiet, he got a thank you. But yeah, so if anyone does see issues like the pressure, the power companies, I would say, you know, they might act like a machine, but the people within it know that you that it actually really helps.
Sorry, just going back to Slimbridge, do you still do the evening with the swans?
Yes, yeah, we do. There's still evening swan feeds. So
Yeah, when you can have a meal?
I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, that was a really good event, wasn't it? Yeah.
I mean, that was absolutely brilliant. We were given it as a present, and you go and then you have a really nice meal, and somebody gives you a talk about the swans, and then you see them all arriving.
Yeah, it is a really wonderful thing. Maybe we can connect after this, and I'll get back to you. I'm not 100% sure what the programme is this season.
I was just going to recommend it to people here as very good Christmas presents.
Oh, yeah, that's good. Yeah, we also did. I think we did do some mulled wine and mulled cider watching the swans, which also sounds quite good. But yeah, I'm happy to sort of find out for you. Yeah.
Can I take a short interlude there to help us with our kit? Is that okay? So if anybody has managed to get the Mentimeter thing working.
Hello?
What was that?
Hello? You're talking about funds. Right.
Yeah, we'll take a question. Go for it.
The question is that, of course, there's a great deal of back chatter through the Tinternet and various other places about wind turbines, which can stand 150 metres high. What's the effect of particularly large fields of wind turbines out over the water on migrating birds?
Yeah, there are certainly concerns that wind turbines positioned on migratory routes could pose a risk to migratory birds. We've done our own bit of research in relation to the swans, migratory swans on this. So those birds that were fitted with trackers, we were able to precisely understand their routes across the offshore wind farms or through the offshore wind farms. And we actually found that they weren't flying at that height, and the risk would be really negligible. So for the bigger sort of migratory birds, the evidence just really isn't there to suggest it's a really big problem. Now, there might be more of an issue depending on the species and the heights that they fly and where they're positioned. So they do need to be well positioned, and those sorts of things need to be considered. But certainly for the swans, we don't believe they're a significant risk.
Can I add to that? That obviously I've flown that whole journey and spoken to a lot of people and didn't find anybody who mentioned swans hitting the turbines. What I would say I did notice is that for me personally, you certainly don't want to be flying downwind. You don't want to be landing downwind close to big areas of turbines, and there are some very large areas of turbines that in strong wind would make a big area. And I think in geese there's some evidence of birds deviating around big areas of turbulence. But definitely the main issue is what you do with the power lines. You've got to get the power from there to somewhere where you can use it. Yes. Do you mind? So I'm not 100% sure it's going to work. So I don't know. Has anybody managed to open up that Menti, and have you got a question appearing? And if so, which question are you seeing? Is that the question that you're saying? What skills and resources? So I'll tell you why we're asking that question. So this is part of the kit that we are producing. The one thing that I've noticed is that we're quite often, when we're, certainly from a conservation point of view, when we're trying to get people's support, we think about what sort of donations can they make and maybe what can they sign, but probably don't do enough. And certainly at a community level, it's really important to look at actually people, what resources have people got, what skills, what networks, what influence they've got.
This film was made actually to play in the Russian Arctic, so you'll notice there's a quite strong Russian theme there.
and so we still hope that it will play on Russian television. So we have the connection there. What next? I'd really like to add in here. There is a second question on the Mentimeter, which I would love input to. It is for anyone who's interested in conservation locally. It's something we definitely saw, that while this project brought lots of different people together, it made a sense of how all the different things all the different actions along a flyway can add up to something big. The most important thing is people stepping up and acting locally. So what we'd like to know is, if you're interested in acting locally, what other blocks to do it? What would you like that you don't already have, which will be really critical for our kit? What next? I am also in... Carry on.
It was Leadshot. The EU wetland ban only came in 2023. So, yeah, it's a really good question, like how we're monitoring that. We already know that there's some... what's the word? It's not working in some countries, unfortunately, and there needs to be complaints to the European Commission, which is almost why I think partial regulation is always quite difficult to enforce when lead's still on the market and you can still buy it for other types of shooting outside of wetlands. So that's why we're really pushing for this wider ban, to really try and take it out of the shops as much as possible. But we don't really know how well it's working at the moment. It's quite a new law that's just come in, but it will be quite difficult to enforce if it's just partial regulation.
One more thing on that. So Denmark has just become chair of the Council of Ministers. It's the only other country across Europe that also has a total ban on the use of lead in ammunition, and so they're really willing to drive that. We now have interest. The Crown Estate have said they're interested in showing some leadership on the issue, so we really have got, I think, quite a good 6 months they're in charge of it, so we've got a moment where we can really help shift the narrative. So also, if you've got any friends that hunt or you hunt yourselves, and you can encourage them not to kick and scream and make a fuss about it and embrace steel and alternatives, that would also be fantastic.
And finally, your last sentence each on your future projects for you personally.
I am promoting this film screening all across the flyway, kayaking and paddling all the way back to Estonia. We've done part of it, I've got a bit more to go, and then also vultures, if anyone's interested in vultures. Look up Conservation with the Outboarders online and follow us.
Yeah, and the main thing that we're working on in relation to species is the Leadshot campaign, so any help with that would be really wonderful. If you didn't quite catch the QR code, that was to sign a petition to push the EU ban, but if you just Google Ban Lead Now petition, you'll find it online.
Brilliant. Let's give them a big hand. Networking and doing wonderful things and playing the game. Charlie, I think you had some now.